Were you?
I found a load of old stuff about a load of old stuff about that weird island in the Bristol Channel that you know nothing about. So
Oh, did you?
oh,
Hmm.
and I found a photograph the other day of my daughter covered in seagull shit. I can't. What was your specific instructions? Go that way, and then my daughter and I get pelted with this white stuff.
Well, I did say that uh, uh, seagull poo is good for the roots
Yeah,
when you get it in your hair. Yeah.
yeah. Thanks, Pete. It really went down well. My daughter calls the island Seagull Island. So I sent her a photograph the other day. So Seagull Island. So right. So okay, we are
I
started.
think that was
So
the
let's
first
see.
time I met you, was it? Would that be the first time I met you?
Well, our relationship has been a bit queer because it's been like I think it was the first time I met you. Then a little while after you came on a walk, and I think you were surprised to see me because you wouldn't have known my name back then. So
No.
no, you turned up on a walk, and it was like, oh, you were the guy on Flat Home, so you wouldn't have known me. I wouldn't have known you. And
Mm.
then what was the link to go to the classes in Cardiff?
But yeah, I used to go to ASDA's to the committee room there.
Yeah, but how did you
Um,
start going?
oh, Linda,
Oh,
Linda,
oh,
and
yeah, that's right.
Linda got me to start that,
And,
and
and you,
I
and you,
met
and you,
Sandra there.
yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Mm.
And you've been looking back ever since.
I
Okay. I don't know where we are. Right. Any news from you? Oh, Pete. So tell us about. Everyone needs to know why you weren't here last week because it's very important that we know all about your private life.
last week, well, on the Tuesday, the catheter was changed,
Oh God. Yeah.
and then on the Wednesday, my dad, my daughter and son-in-law were going to take me to the Spinney for coffee,
Lovely.
and I was waiting him
All
to
right.
knock the door when Kate knocked the door.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
How did Kate know my address?
Richard gave it to her.
Did he? Ah, right. He gave her the wrong number though, didn't he?
One me,
I
you
said
now.
it was 36, wasn't
No, that's my daughter.
it? All right. Okay. All right. Anyway, it's good that you're in one piece, Pete. That's the main thing.
Yeah, fair enough. Yep.
Fair enough. Right. Okay. Then we'll go. No Ruth today. No Anne. No Kathy. So we're a bit short today. So okay. Who else? Right. Kate, tell us your news.
Sorry, I was fixing my drink. Yes?
You got to tell us your news this week.
Oh right. Well, the only news, it sort of isn't really news. I was looking at Iweni Priory this morning
Yes.
online, and I see that they've got open days all over Easter. And what I didn't know is that if you email them and ask nicely, they let you see the principal rooms in the house as well, which I
Wait. Yeah.
love
When you
to
say
see.
you yeah, you weren't specific. So it's for you house that
Well,
you're
it,
going to
it's
go.
for both. It's for both. The church belongs to Cadu, but the
Yes,
house
that's correct.
is private. But if you go there to see, if you go there on an open day, if you ask nicely, they let you in the house as well. So I've done that actually. I've emailed them this morning, not had a reply, but I would like to see it. It was rebuilt in beginning of the 19th century.
1800s. Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, very beginning. But there's a 1545 wing left, and apparently there's lots from the Georgian.
But when you
Nice
go there,
views.
right?
So,
When you go there, ask to look at the South Gatehouse.
Okay.
right?
Ooh, I
Because
better write that down.
not you don't want it, the North Gatehouse. Everyone sees that as they drive in, but the South Gatehouse, because there's some rooms upstairs in it and some nice little windows. So and there's some steps. So if they say it's out of bounds, it's out of bounds. But if you can see the South Gatehouse, it's not what you would usually see. So
Uh-huh. They use
right,
the
okay,
Upper Gatehouse to good effect for weddings, I understand. The happy
yes,
couple arrive through there.
yes, yes, it's nice, it's lovely.
Mm.
Um, okay, okay, then who's next? What we need now is we're going to hear from Richard.
Nothing for me really. I haven't been anywhere or learned anything exciting this week.
Okay, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Right, so we are going to crack on. I've got a load of images to show you, and if Anne joins us, then Richard knows how to add her.
Yeah.
Right, so we're going to go on. All right. So let's right the images. The I got the images ready last week, so we got a load of images, and then we got some stuff in the middle, and we got a load of images. So it's like it's a bit punty, but it's all being set ready ish. Um,
Just before you begin,
yeah, go
nice
on.
hat. Nice hat. I wouldn't want you to think that we were ignoring your nice new hat.
Well, actually,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. It was bought as um a Valentine's present by Michelle for me. You see, so when she turned up, she gave me these the hat and the a load of chocolates and some strawberries, and she looked at me with her arms wide open, and there was nothing for me to give her. Um, so so I said to her, I said, "Here's my credit card. Go and buy yourself a hat." So, but mind you, I got to be honest with you. I've got to be honest with you. Yesterday was actually a birthday, right? So she actually had for her birthday a complete course in the Cornish language, the book that Peter's got, which is Skell and Yais. So yeah, so that's what she had for her birthday, and she had some flowers off me as well. The flowers were reduced, but that's yeah. There we go. I will tell Michelle that you commented on my hat. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's lovely.
Thank you.
Well, it's a working man's hat. That's the only trouble.
Yeah, but we can't be perfect. You know what I mean? We really can't. We really can't. Um, right. So, and also, I was delighted to say that I had some lines in a film on Friday, so that I was really happy with that, and it was a film about the 1920s. So there we go. So, moving on from Baldrick. So what we got today is I wanted to continue that as you know, I'm processing my archaeological finds and so on. And so before we get these out to publication, I just thought I would share these with you. And I haven't got a map in front of me, but the finds that you're about to see are obviously from the Barron district. They're actually from a place which is between Bonvilston and Llancarvan. It's a field by a tiny little sort of small hamlet of houses called Whitelands, where I used to live. And there's a field opposite, and I decided to do some field walking. Now, I just in this sort of field, what this represents is slag. Now, this is industrial slag.
Hmm.
So that indicates that at some point in that field, some point in the 1850s or thereabouts to the 1900s, they whatever they were importing into the field, there was a load of slag, and you can tell that this is slag from the iron manufacturing process from the 1850s because it's almost as if the iron's been completely taken out of it. The whiter slag is, the more modern in the processing of slag it is, right? So this is basically hardly any air bubbles in it. It's like molten, so basically all the iron's been taken out of it. So that's what we can work out from that. So that's find number one. So next, what we have is the usual thing that you find when you're field walking in the Vale of Glamorgan is typically terracotta fragments. usually anything in date from the 1800s onwards. So obviously this has been spread from that period again. But it does get more intriguing and interesting and this is from an area, a field of about half an acre in size. So it was just a random collection of artifacts. And what we do see is that we get these terracotta finds, which are basically non-glazed, but these are glazed fragments. Just a little bit about glazing. The big one on the bottom, that's probably a UNE type. They're probably all UNE types here because that was the biggest and nearest pottery to the likes of Langcarve and Bonvilston. Most pottery that you find in fields in the Vale of Glamorgan in that area are from UNE, undoubtedly, because there was in the 1700s at one point there was quite a large number of potteries at UNE, so the mass production of pottery. And the coloration with the bottom one in particularly, to actually get that the process is that obviously um, you've got the green pot itself. When I say green, it's not exactly gone off, but it's either been made in the mold or it's been made on a wheel, usually a wheel. What you then do, the glaze itself is then applied, and the glaze itself is usually an iron glaze. Well, it's not an iron color. So what they've done, they've added manganese into it. The reason why you've got UNE pottery where it is that there's manganese nearby. So the manganese itself is added to give color. So manganese is dark, is black. So what you do, you mix that with the iron oxide, and then when that's gone, you then it might actually be a two firing process. But whether it is a two firing process, then at some stage you add a coating on top of that, which actually gives it its shine, and that coating is a lead coating, and that's a lead dip. And the other reason why the potteries are at UNE is that lead is manufactured nearby. They stopped using lead in the manufacturing process at UNE in the 1940s, actually, to glaze it with the lead coat. So obviously, because of the toxins and what we then understand with lead associated with glazes and coatings in the pottery manufacturing process. But what we have here um, is a rather. This is probably a lot earlier than the others. It probably dates probably sometime in the 1700s or thereabouts. You can see that there's more of a there's more of a texture in that, which is more of a yellow, so that there's more likely to be a higher iron oxide content in that. It's unlikely that's much in the way of there's much in the way of the likes of manganese in that, but it's tossing back and forth whether it's used UNE. It's unlikely that this is a piece of UNE because the way the coloration is, it's not typically UNE in color. UNE oxides are usually a lot more shinier in the yellow constituents without the manganese. But obviously that there is typically UNE where you've got the yellows being bleached out by the manganese itself. So that's definitely UNE. That's unlikely, and obviously all the other little bits that's probably UNE. That's probably UNE. That's probably UNE. That's likely UNE as well. So again, what we're learning is from this small selection of pottery from a field between Bonvilston and Llancarvan is that there's lots of spreads of material from the yards and so on at different times. And interesting enough, in when I moved to this part, um, roughly around roughly before 1997, they actually ripped out all the hedges for a whole mile across the field, specifically in that time, because in that time, in the late 1990s, there was a new act passed by Parliament that restricted the movement of hedges. And as that was going through Parliament, a farmer ripped out every single hedge from. You look at a map; they're all gone. So before the 1990s, you can see all the hedges there. And at the end of the 1990s, all the hedges for exactly 1 whole mile are ripped out all the way across, which I believe is terrible. That we've lost all those hedges and so on. But that's something else. So what we then have is obviously the backs of the pots. Now this itself is a piece of medieval fabric. This is local. We know it's local if we zoom in. We know it's local. This is quite a good macro image, actually. And I've got to, the cat wants letting out, so bear with me. Marley, come on. I'm sorry about that. This piece of pottery on the screen itself, you can tell it's local. And how can you tell it's local? Because there's bits of quartz in it. Now, quartz itself is locally endemic of the process of light tempering of the local coursewares involved in the medieval period, and it's probably more than likely that this dates roughly from about the 1200s, early 1300s. And again, this one single medieval fragment again spread into the fields with muck spreading, involving that landscape of obviously a much more complex landscape to do with Bombleston and Llancarvan than, for example, Cosmeston. And the reason why that is because you've got the prerequisite of the monastic orders in the landscape who had obviously a hell of a massive sway at that period. So obviously a local courseware, and there we go. It's you can see lots of quartz in that, lots of grains. Nice texture on that fragment. It's undiagnostic, so we don't know if it's a rim or part of a base or something. We don't know what type of pottery it is. There seems to be a little bevel coming up in the image on that, which I didn't see prior. But it's very much of a reduced type of pottery. So what we've got when we've got reduced pottery, you would make the pots, and the wall of this is quite shallow. The core, the exterior and interior is all grey. It's slightly discoloured there, but this piece of pot itself is in a reduced kiln. And what it is with a reduced kiln, you stack up the pots in the reduced kiln above charcoal and stuff that's been built up on plinths. And then what you then do, you light it, and it slowly cooks without a flue. So the smoke itself and the fumes exit through the wall of the kiln or the roof of the kiln, the clays of the kiln, rather than actually a flue. So it cooks it much more slowly, and you could say it's a more less exhaustive process in a sense of resources, that the charcoal itself burns for a longer period of time than in an oxidized kiln. And the temperatures give the grey and the black colours that we typically see in the medieval period and before. Now, this is interesting material. It looks like bits of red brick, but it's actually daub. It's daub. So this could come from hearth linings in houses. It can come from walls, as in the Watland daub, very thick walls. Basically, at some point, this daub itself has been has faced the very high temperatures. Some of it might be fragments of brick, but most of it is actually daub itself. And the daub itself is typically being used in any building process within the landscape, or you could talk about cob building as well. But this clay itself, at some point in the last end of the process of the building that it's associated with, or if it is associated with the hearth, this is then ended up in yards and so on and discarded on fields. And that would typical brick fragments rather than daub. And the reason why daub itself is more sort of rounded in profile, brick it's sort of more sharper, even though that's like being eroded or abraded, the one at the bottom. But that's typically brick rather than the circular profile that would associate with daub. and another piece of terracotta type, and obviously a single tooth from a cow, quite worn, quite an old cow. That's going to just sort of drop off as a cow is grazing across a field. One thing that typically that I say when I'm field walking, obviously this collection's my own collection, but I've been I've been in fields where I've been field walking with people and they've picked up everything. I've had whole bags of stones. I've had whole bags of bone, and there's nothing else in the bags. So what I usually say to people is, right, don't pick up any bones at all. Don't pick a single bone up and don't pick up a single stone up. But unfortunately, when you've got green people field walking, you've got to say pick everything up because they don't know the difference between a piece of pottery and a piece of cow shit, you know. So that's the unfortunate thing. But when you've got experience, you can simply turn around and say, don't pick up any bones, don't pick up any teeth. So then the collection is all the other things that we've just been looking at. A couple of more interesting objects until before we actually get onto Barry. Now, this itself is if we look all the way around it, right? Hang on a minute. Okay. This itself is what's typically referred to as North Devon gravel tempered ware. This is late North Devon gravel tempered ware, probably from about the 1700s. What would be happening typically in the harbours in Landsford Major, Aberthaw, and Barry? They would export goods and to Devon and Cornwall, but typically Devon because this is North Devon gravel tempered ware, and hence the name North Devon. So goods would go out of the Vale of Glamorgan, and this type of tempered ware is specific for North Devon. It was produced roughly medieval period, 1400s all the way through to the 1800s. It's quite a wide date range. And what we would do, we would say it, we would export materials over to Devon and Cornwall, and in return, we'd come back with boats full of North Devon gravel tempered ware. Um, on archaeological sites throughout the Vale of Glamorgan, you see barrel loads of this on archaeological sites because it was a typically groggy type of wares that were in use. And the more shinier the sheen, the more recent it's going to be into the 1800s, the more gritty, the older it is. It's not got the massive levels of grit, but you can actually typically see you've got gravel like grit in that North Devon gravel tempered ware. Bits of quartz in it as well, naturally. And you can see that the firing process isn't regulated. So that it's again likely that they've had an oxidized kiln, hence why it's red on the outside. And then they've probably filled in the flue, and then they've cooked it to be reduced. So hence why you've got two tone in the firing process. Now this is interesting. This is a piece of not medieval, that again. This is a piece of handle which is probably more likely the 1600s. You can see that the firing process is not as extreme as you would see with a kiln from the late 1800s, because the process itself, you've got a two-tone process. So at some stage, the firing has altered in temperature as they've got this object, a small jug with a handle, so the jug handle, but it's not typically late 1800s. Is not typically medieval either, so it sort of comes in the middle there, in the middle zone. So that's a handle. But obviously what we do find, I just recorded these, got two bits of slag there, two bits of coal, billet slate, and interestingly here we've actually moved on to another find. So that's all the stuff from the likes of Bombleston and the likes of between Bombleston and Lancarf and a place called Whitelands. But I'm just going to chuck this in there anyway because it's part of my photograph stuff. This is actually an artifact that actually comes from a flower bed of my ex-wife's studio in Neville Street in Abergavenny. and it's there you go. You've got this sort of two-tone firing process as well. Note the quartz. There's me. Note the quartz matrix is slightly different. Um, there are undoubtedly bits of quartz in it and stuff, but what we've got, this is actually found in a flower bed, and this is a piece of medieval pottery, right? So this is just to wind Peter up now. These images. Look at that, Pete. Pete, that's me on set on Monday, on Friday. That was for
Oh,
a 1920s film. I was a
looks almost
reporter in it.
human.
And look at that. Look at the change in look. That's me as a Tudor gentleman.
Oh,
And so which look do you prefer, Pete? That look or that look?
that one, I think, yeah.
Okay, Kate, which one do you prefer? The 1920s or the Tudor look? I don't think she's talking to us.
No.
Kate.
Sorry, the dog was barking. I think I think you're more convincing as a Tudor man. I don't know
Oh,
why.
okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, right. Okay. I just chucked that in just to break up the lecture. Right. So obviously this week's Baron District. Have you noticed the your granddaughter's been airbrushed?
Oh, her little bit of hair. Good. A little bit of her
She's gone.
hair.
She's disappeared. She's not in the image. I when I as we're looking at Friar's Point now, this is completely um by accident that the next image we're looking at Friar's Point. And the link is quickly, and we'll mention a little bit about this in a moment. But more or less just off where it's got site of chapel, just a little bit further down. This is where this building is, and it's for me. I didn't elaborate enough in the Baron District. I really should have. This is lots of the front casing on the front is concrete, cast concrete, and the back is actually brick, not brick, stone. The local carboniferous limestone. Instead of all being poured concrete, this is a composite of both concrete and stone. It's not a good idea to use stone in these types of buildings for the Second World War and the concrete to you, right? But I don't think they were thinking about this. There's obviously a lookout post, and as I was writing about this, I thought usually these are described as because there would have been a concrete blast roof on this, and usually when they're describing these, they're talking about they had these lights in them, and I'm just thinking it's not a big space to put this massive, huge light in there. And I questioned that when I was writing it in the Baron District because there's not enough back to it. It's not deep enough to have a huge, massive light in it, and it's not tall enough.
Well, I
Unlike
totally see what you mean because those lights were enormous, weren't they?
yeah, they were big. They were big. And when people are describing these as having as light stations, I'm really questioning that. And because it's only big enough to have a couple of people in there with these metal shutters and the metal doors to be able to look out. And these would be very drafty things. You're not going to have a machine gun. You're not going to have a piece of artillery in there. That's absolutely ridiculous. If anyone ever suggested that is not the case. But having a big light in there, these things were huge. They were big because of the technology at the time. The lumens on them would need to be a big thing. Right. So I then what I did in the Baron District, I then thought, right, what I'm doing is showing you this image this week. And there you go. So what you've got, a few interesting things there. First thing you've got human remains found AD 1876. Now that's rather interesting. That links in with a certain Mr. Romilly's work, doesn't it, Richard? But we've actually cited other remains being found a lot further over towards the breakwater, but that's another story altogether. However, that comment aside that I made with Richard, then that comment aside, what is really interesting is that the wording site of chapel, right? Site of chapel. Now we've this has been one of those things that has been wrongly placed on maps. There was never a chapel there. right? And it comes down to notes written down by John Leland, who was the king's who was the king's cartographer and king's antiquarian and king's um, historian in the 1540s. And as he's sailing up the coast, and he has really got bad eyesight as well. He's writing the history of Britain. He's really got bad eyesight. So he's sailing up the coast. He can sort of say, "Oh, the Barry Castle over there, and there's the harbour of Aberthaw and whatever." Right, and the coastline, the history of the landscape was recorded from the sea, right? Other bits of it come from other knowledge inland and so on, but that's something else. So he records that there's a chapel at this point, but it's the angle that he's looking, and he's actually seeing the top of the monastery that would have been underneath the fairground. Right. This is what we think, or this is what I think. This is what I've come to know. And I think who was it last week who said that they were going to take a photograph of that? It was Kate. That's right. Kathy it was. Kathy said that she was gonna she reckons she had a photograph of that building. That was actually didn't she tell us last week? She she said that in the uh in the town hall there's some photographs on the wall that show maybe something there, and it might be that building. So hopefully she'll bring that to us next week. So obviously you've got the lodge, you've got Friars Point House, um, and again the wording Little Island. I mean, in many ways, what we have in regards to understanding the landscape really comes from these maps. And obviously, you've got Yorkie Rock, which you've got marked on their breakwater. So, but this map itself is from the 1900. It's revised then. It's revised 1900. You know, I at one stage I was convinced that the breakwater at York Rock was a lot older than a few years off 1900, and but it's not. It's not. It's just 120 odd years old. So so next, what we've got is this from the same. All of these are from the same map. Wickmore Bay,
Well, well.
right? Wick, Wick, Wickmore. Now, um, um, the word wick itself, as in Stanwick or wick in the Vale of Glamorgan, is basically referring to produce, right? So it's basically vaguely this means a moor, and the produce of this is the moor. It's a moor. It's descriptive. It's descriptive. It's basically saying this is a moor. This is like an open area, right? Because behind this there would have been all those sand dunes, hence Wickmore Bay. I know some other people would probably say something completely different, but we're not interested in that. And and one of the one of the intriguing things is that you've got that little sort of that little bridge there. We like that, and also what we've got a tiny little switchback railway on the left there, which will come up on the other screen, which is a little bit more descriptive. And what is also on here, as we've got Nell's Point on the right hand side, and we've got this little sort of switchback railway on the left, which you can just see on the screen. You can actually see there. You've got Piro's Abbey, remains of Piro's Abbey. Now, um, Piro's or Petros, or depend on Petra's Abbey, Piro's Abbey. It's showing that there is something on the map. They're showing that there's like a trapezoidal type building on the map there, as you can see, alongside the word P. Now we don't know anything more than that, and it's a great shame that we have no more information, and we really don't have much more information than what's on the map. There are a few references that Richard and I have come across, which have been written up for the book, but other than that, we don't know any more. And if Barry Island would be if Barry Island was developed now, you know, it'd been left all those years and be developed now. that would be excavating. We really know what those remains were and are. But it is likely as well that they are actually underneath the surface because they're still there. Because as you know, it's all tarmacked over, it's all concreted over there. I think that's near. That's basically underneath where the entrance was, the ticket office for the log flume, I think, where that's showing.
Mm.
So in as we develop the raison d'etre to understand the Barry Island landscape, we've got to really think about um, you know, it was developed so fast. But there might still be a lot there to be discovered. That there's still it still might be under the surface. That's what I'm getting at, but it's not the end of the world. And um, so what we got this here, and we got that there, and we go back over to Barry Island. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to this image, and we're going to go back on the other two. Right. So they're what we've got. We've got it more clearly. It's got the site of the Roman well, which as some of us are aware, the Roman well is in fact medieval, and you've got the railway station platform, obviously Roman Well Road, where it was referred to as a Roman well by John Story, um, because of there were some Roman artifacts found associated with the well, so hence the date. But the other artifacts were clearly medieval. And what you've got a line, some kind of rail line going all the way into the fun fair there. Not really sure what that's about. Maybe Richard might know a little bit more on that. And as we know, at the back there, SP, that's where the old Maslin Park is. And again, just a little bit further north of that is lots of um, uh, railway sidings and so on coming in, and of the Barry Island station as it heads to another feature that we're going to actually look at in a moment. And hang on a minute, I thought I had more of it. I don't. On the other map, I think we did show it last week that you had the farm, and what we've got here is a few things. Now, this is marking Saint Barrack's well, and it's referring to the site of the well, and it's also referring to a trough, right? And the trough itself would be fed with water as well. So you've got the well, and the trough, and obviously Kate's idea of Wells Point rather than Nell's Point. I know me and Richard are hammer and tongs about that at this minute, but um, there's a lot to be said about this headland, but without giving too much away. And somewhere I can remember when I was a child, there's like a cave underneath the headland there, like a T. And I can remember when we went looking for this cave and the water was coming in, and we found something, and we sort of walked along into a bit of it, and then it was blocked up. But there is some sort of in alignment, I think, with the T. There's some sort of cave going in there, but never really explored it. Really don't know, and I don't really think it goes any further than where we actually walked. So the last image that I want to show this week, and it's much shorter this week because we haven't got Anne interrupted, but there's some rather interesting things about this. And we did actually look at the boathouse, and Richard was talking about a sewage station there and all the rest of it, and the landing stage, and watch house and the rocket shed, and the farm complex. And I hope I'm right in what I'm saying is that not all of those buildings survive today. So
No.
you've got, I actually, I could be told that I'm wrong. The only building that actually survives is that one, right? because I'm not aware that these are actually still there. Richard, those ones are not with us anymore, are they?
No, they've all gone. They're all,
They've all they've all gone, yeah.
yeah, I can't ever remember those being there because the White House was there. And I think it was built on that site virtually.
Yeah. I can remember the White House really well.
Yeah,
There was a big swimming pool, wasn't there? And
yeah,
um I can remember actually going to the White House and there was still water in the swimming pool. Um and it was like full of frogs and newts and toads and so on. And then they filled it in. And all those little frogs and toads lost their homes forever. Yeah, but I can't ever remember those buildings. Obviously, Richard's confirmed that. However, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over to here, um, with the wordings. It says human remains found, and the date is AD. I think that's 18. That looks like 1856, does it, or 1866? And the interesting thing as well is that the unfortunate thing is where does when it says human remains found, right? Where are actually the human remains in regards to that? Are they by the H? Are they by the six? Where are the human remains there? Right. But that's rather interesting. And when you look at that on the map, you start to think, well, hey, is this something? Is there a link here with the likes of the Roman site, the Roman official building, of Glanamore, and it's just been that is that sort of linked with that. And if I get hang on a minute, if I get the map itself in front of me, where's the map itself in front of me? Hang on a minute. Hang on. I just got to find. Ah, yeah, I've got the map in front of me. Hang on a minute. I'm just looking at the map to see. I'm just trying to track something else on here as well. Um, I do believe that further along there as well that there's a, if I can remember correctly, there's another set of human remains being marked as being found along there. I'm not exactly sure, or it could be this one. But is that simply to do with the Roman site at Glanamore? And if that's the case, then that would be testament to the level of Roman evidence within this landscape. And just one last thing. This is quite a short one today, actually. One last thing before we close, that this itself, between the boathouse all the way to that boundary, was all marshy, boggy land, and it was marked on Evans mouse map from the was it 1622, and it was marked as sort of the number for it was actually K2, I think, or somewhere around there. There was a K number, a property number associated with it, and that itself, that area was really marshy and boggy, and obviously perfect to put the Lido, but not really fit for building anything else. But one last thing is marked on there, the lime kiln. Now, I know Richard went over there and he took photographs, and you could actually see evidence of where the lime kilns were. And that evidence was still there when they were actually doing work over the Cold Nap, I think just a couple of years ago. And hence, we've got marked on the map lime kiln. So that's what I'm going to ask is there any is there anything in regards to these maps that anyone wants us to look at before we actually call it a day? Yeah, anything? Obviously the Whitmore, and the Cold Nap.
Interesting. So there wasn't a Whitmore. Was there not a Mr. Whitmore?
No, it was Wickmore. No,
Isn't
it
that
was.
amazing?
Yeah, it is. So when you've got what is it is it Whitmore High School or whatever it's called these days?
Yeah.
The original name was Wickmore, right? And obviously, and actually, there is something that I want to say. There is something that I want to say, right? And I'm gonna do it this way, right? And I've just realised this myself. Little Island, Friars Point House, York Rock, U Rocks, Wickmore Bay, Cold Nap Farm, Watch House Bay, Nell's Point. And I'm not mentioning St. Barracks Well, and why? The one thing that all of those things have in common, not a single one of them is Welsh. There's not a single Welsh place name in any of that. And also, if you want to go to, if you want to think about St. Barracks Well, that's not really a Welsh name either, right? And there's a big debate about the name St. Barrack. And it's rather interesting that as you look at this map, there are no Welsh place names. And that to me is intriguing. Why just look there if you do look at the Barron district area, you could think of, if you think of Haddockston, okay, you could think of Haddock, and you could think that there's a mutation there to the Welsh Paddock. Barry itself is not a Welsh name, right? And you think of Cwm Kiddy, for example. Cwm, yeah, that's a Welsh name. So some of these Welsh names did survive. Porthcerrig, there's a Welsh infusion there. But overall, the place names in this area are predominantly anglicised, or they're just English, full stop. And just thinking it that way, that's intriguing. That it makes, and also back to the point. Okay. Oh, and there's that little other map. I'll just show you that in a moment. That's one of Richard's. It's very interesting that we've got the name Wickmore being Wickmore in the 1900s, and then it changes, right? And it's like it's so easily changed. So, thinking about the Welsh names, at some stage, it's likely they were all completely altered. They just dissipated from the planet. I mean, it's not because there weren't Welsh speakers in the area, because there were. But when you go back to the 1600s, the predominant dialect of the area was actually Somerset. And that's a born fact. When you go to Lantworth Major, it's written in the 1500s. The dialectically, the accent is Somerset, right? So at some stage between those 500 years, the place names are changed quite dramatically. For example, even when you look at Jarlston, that's a Norman name. Aberthor isn't; it's a Welsh name. When you think about Llaniltydvawr, yeah, okay, you got a Welsh stuff there. But when you look at the Vale of Glamorgan, you've got places like Cymenston, that's English anglicised. Llancarvan, that's what Welsh. Penmark, that's Welsh. So as you start to move further in, you get sort of non-anglicised names. But here in Barry, it's almost as if all the Welsh stuff has completely disappeared. You could think about Bendrick, the fishing ground, the place to catch fish, the head of the fishing ground, Pendricks, right? And you could think of Penarth down the road, but Sully's certainly not Welsh, right? And this is what we see. So what I'm going to do is show you one other little map. This is one of those maps that Richard dug out, and again, this is quite sort of an anglicized map. And what date was this, Richard? 1646, right? And there's lots of really intriguing things on this map, really. But you can see that Sully there, Sylly, and Sully Island, Sylye. Do you remember a few years ago that there was a controversy about the place name of Sully? up until about the 1980s, you would drive through Barry, and it would be Barry and D Barry with the I on the end. And then you'd go to Sully, it would be Sully and D Sully with the I on the end, right? And some bright smart said, "Oh, we'll call it Silly, or we'll call it Sully," and I just thought, you know, what is the point? And in fact, I'm going to say it as it is, right? There's no point having another translation for Barry. Barry's Barry, Sully's Sully. It's the same when you go to other parts of Wales. That the Welsh names are predominant. Why would you translate a Welsh name into an English name? There's no point, right? But you don't need to translate English names into Welsh because it's just silly, or sully. But interesting enough, we've got Barry Island marked there, and we've got Barry. But if you look closely at the map, right, Barry itself has got 2 locations marked, and you can only think that those 2 locations are associated with Barry and Halton, because there's Cadoxton, but Cadoxton is all the way further inland. Merthyr Dyfn is all the way further inland, which really, really odd that. Cadoxton there. What the hell is Cadoxton doing there? Well, that's really odd. Very, very odd. And as you sort of look around the landscape and you twist this, Penmark spelt without the C on the end, there's a K there. Funman, Fonmon, Llanceadl, Llanbeddary, Llancarvan, and I've got Bupa there, but I've no idea what that is. Dria Gubby, that might be, is that Welsh St. Donat's? I'm not sure. Llantrithid, there can't be. Welsh St. Donat's is further north. St. Hilary, Cowbridge, Llandoch, St. Mary's Church, Eglwys Brewers, Jarlston, St. Athan.
Some of
West
them don't look
Aberthaw.
quite where they're supposed to be at all.
They don't. There's West Aberthaw, Wafton Aberthaw. Now this is really interesting, right? There's something interesting that's on the map, right? It's the word Bovium, Boverton. Now that's really interesting to me as somebody that says that the Roman Bovium is actually in Cowbridge. Bovine, Bovium, the place of a cow. But over the years, you occasionally hear that the Roman fort site of Bovium was actually at where modern day Boverton is today. And it's very interesting that I see that on the map. And I can't deny it's on the map because it's in front of me, isn't it? It's actually in front of me. Right. So that's very, very interesting. And I do believe that
it makes sense. Of course, Boverton is a corruption of Bovium. Of course it is.
Oh my God, you've ruined my book.
Oh shit.
You buggered it up. But the thing is, you do get these anomalies and you're right, and thinking that there's where there's a fact, where there's a myth or a legend, there's a fact waiting to be told. So what does that mean? So let's not deny that that's actually on the map. That is there on the map, Bovium, right? I could argue that they've got Cadoxton in the wrong place, so Bovium is actually Cowbridge. But it's interesting that that's there. You could argue that till the cows go blue, but it's interesting. Let's not deny history; it's there. Now, I want to just go on a little bit further. Actually, that would indicate a deer park or a gardens or a park or something. That's what that means, because if you go over there, you've got something very similar when you go over towards Merthyr Mawr way and so on. But what Clemenston, there you go, it's Clemenstown. You've got that there. There's a tiny little church there. But look at that, Wyke. That's Wick. Now that is completely a different name than Wick, as in W-I-C-K, which is descriptive. Wick means produce area, or as I've already explained, right? But that doesn't say Wick. That's W-Y-K-E. That's a completely different word.
Oh, but
right?
the spelling was all over the shop still.
Say that
It
again.
I said spelling was all over the shop. It wasn't really standardized quite yet, was it?
No, it wasn't. But what I do see is that there
People used to just do it phonetically as they might have read elsewhere or whatever they think it should be.
should be, or maybe not. That's interesting. They're great Saint Brides. Great Saint Brides. Not
Mm.
Saint Brides. Okay, we've just had that discussion, Kate, but they put a great in there, and that's
St.
interesting.
Bride's Major, does that mean the same thing?
Saint Bride's Major, Great Saint Bride's. Yeah. Do you know what? That is a really nice way of looking at it. So it's called Saint. Well, okay, Procre. Let's go to Saint Bride's, right? But it is actually Saint Bride's Major. You've nailed it. You are completely correct, right? You have nailed it. So Saint Bride's Major, Great Saint Bride's. Yeah, I like that. Nice. You nailed it there. But there's different places on here that I've no idea where that is. Little Nash, right?
Mm.
Where Nash is there. That's
Mm.
Nash Point. Not really sure what's going on there.
Well,
Um, and
perhaps
you've
there
got
was a
Land.
little hamlet or something there.
Maybe there was. Maybe there was. Landquian Castle. Yeah, um, that was the site that I've excavated, and that's one of the reports that I'm obviously working on.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, so we got the medieval stuff from there. And again, looking deeper into this map, you can see lots of different things that um they've got another St. Bride's there, so that's going to be St. Bride's Minor, St. George, um, St. Livens, um, oh, Gwenvo. There you go, Gwenvo.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, yes, oh, Gavin Gwenvo, because it's Winston Castle. That's Wenvo. That is 100% Wenvo. Um, Defin Denif Powers. Penarth. I've seen Penarth spelt with two N's a few times actually. You've got Kogan, and you've got Cog. You've got Silly, but that there. Cosmeston. Cosmeston. That's Cosmeston. But they put Cosmeston on the coast, and that's Lavenok, right? So lots going on there. And then finally, we're back to Barry, Merthyr Donnan or Merthyr Doven. And that takes us full circle. So what we're going to do, we're going to call that a day now. Nice having a little look at maps occasionally. And obviously tonight we've got loads of gold stuff in tonight's lecture. And we've got trackways and sweet tracks. So if you're zooming in tonight, Kate, you know what we're up to after 7:30, right?
Yeah. The
So
Vikings did that thing with the hurdles, using them as paths.
I think somebody mentioned that last night. Yeah. And obviously
That's a
we've got
useful thing. Well, it's something we might need to do in the post-apocalyptic future, my dear.
to be honest
To stabilize the pathway.
with you, where I'm living, right? We've had nothing but mud and really horrible, claggy mud since October. And
Mm.
we're how many months are we on now? October, November, December, January, February. We got 6 months of absolute, mind my French, crap underfoot, right? And it's just climatically things have massively changed in the past 3 years, but that's something else. Right, okay then, that's another lecture altogether. So let's find out if there are any questionos.
I
Not
have a
from me. That
question.
was fine. That was good.
I'm glad you've approved, Pete.
I have a question. It's from last week, though, because I don't understand the British kitchen at all. Who called it the British kitchen? And what do they mean by British kitchen?
The British kitchen on Barry Island.
Was it like a wartime canteen or something? What was it?
No, but basically what happened with the reference to the British kitchen just opposite St. Barrack's Chapel, and obviously it's there somewhere still. And when John Story was excavating, he actually initially thought that was St. Barrack's Chapel. He originally thought it was, and he referred to it as a kitchen because there was lots of material in there I think initially he said it was a Roman kitchen, but then it turned out to be medieval artifacts in there. But he referred to it as the British kitchen, and I think wasn't it called once, Richard, the ancient British kitchen, or was it just British kitchen? But it's definitely the British kitchen. He referred to it as the British kitchen because there was he found this big fish there, right? I think it
Did
was
it
the
have a
bones of a
book
frog.
inside? No book inside.
Well, it did have a book inside, but it was long out of date, and if he took it back to the library, you'd have had to pay a big fine. There
Oh
was no
dear.
book inside. There was no book. There was no little missile inside. But that itself, it's obviously a reference to do with John's story. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that what he felt, he wanted to be descriptive. So
Right,
that,
right.
that's what he was referring to.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So, what we're going to do now is we're gonna find out if there's anything from Pete the Meat.
No,
We've already
no,
got
that's
Pete the
fine.
Meat.
No,
Oh,
I'm going senile. All right, Pete. I'll just show you the book. There it is. That was Michelle's birthday present.
oh, very good. Yeah,
ooh,
It's Cornish. It's Cornish.
Gasurada.
Ah, that exactly. That's the first thing in there, and that means good
Good
evening.
afternoon. Good evening. Good evening. Sorry, yes.
Yeah. Your third of that. Yeah, that's the first thing in there.
Just that,
And
just that.
duh.
Nostar is basically the same as Nostar in Welsh.
Oscar,
Diva is
Mettendal,
good
good
day in
morning.
Welsh. What's that?
Mettenday, good morning. Mettendal, good
He-
morning.
He's correct.
Dosta is hello. Good day.
Good afternoon. He's correct.
Yep.
Very very similar. Very similar to
You
the
notice
Welsh.
the counting to 100.
Ooh,
Oh, hang on. I got to get to that. Where's
It's done in
where's the number?
20s.
And in 20s. Well, I'll have to get Michelle onto that.
Yeah, it goes up to 20. And then there's
Yeah.
two 20s for 40.
Yeah.
Three 20s for 60. Quatre-vingts for 80.
oh, that's French.
Quatre-vingts is French. And
Yes.
four 20s is 80.
So here we go.
Oh,
So
the
21 is Onan Wan Ungens. And then 41, he's right. Onan Ha Du Higgins. And then 61, Onan Ha Tree Higgins. So that's three 20s.
Yes.
Richard Peters is actually dead on the money. So in other words, 60 is three 20s.
That's it. And in French, 80 is quatre-vingts.
Or in Cornish,
420s.
Peswa Egens, which is 420s.
Yep. Well, yes.
That's so interesting because I'm just reading, I can't, some ancient way of counting. That's right. An ancient way of counting, how they would keep track of their flocks was counting to 20 and then keeping a record of how many 20s they'd have by putting a pebble in a bag or something like that. So, what a thing that's come down into language, not all the way through, but in the quatre-vingts. How interesting is that? I find that
That is
really
interesting.
exciting.
I think you'll
That
find
is
it's the same in Welsh.
un dau tri pedwar pump pedwar oes na deg. So that's un deg or dau deg, but there is I use the more modern version, but yeah, I think what we were talking in school was something different. You need to look that one up.
Yep.
Right. So anything else from Richard, Peter, or Kate before we finish?
No, it was just splendid. And I'd just like to say this by way of a news report. For the last 20 minutes, there's been a police helicopter going round and round and round. I thought I lived in a nice neighborhood. Now I'm not so sure. That's all.
What you live in Barry? How's that a nice neighborhood?
I think it must. It's probably perhaps it's training. There used to be a lot of that. Remember when people they used to be stealing cars all the time? We used to have the helicopters out all the time then.
So what you're saying? Somebody's practicing stealing cars.
Probably. It depends upon how realistic they want to take these
Yeah,
exercises.
I gotta say,
suppose.
how can you practice stealing a car? You're either stealing a car or you're
No,
not.
they're practicing flying the helicopter,
Right. Okay. It's
navigating
not.
Gary. Or maybe they were, maybe they're after drug dealers or something. I don't know. That's exciting.
Well, as soon as it got too hot for Richard with the marijuana in his attic, there were lots of complaints about the smell
That's
of
your first
marijuana.
mistake. Put it in the
Yeah.
cellar.
Yeah. So he decided to move. Do you know Pauline was actually known as the Westward Rise drug dealer?
No.
Yeah, she was. Right. Okay then. On that note,
Okay, yeah.
we'll call it a day. And Peter and Kate and Richard, we will all see you, two of you tonight or whatever. And I will see you next week. Take care.
Okay,
Cheers.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Bye.
No, take care.
So long.
No, take care. Bye bye. No, Richard. See you later, Kate. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Do you know what? Suddenly I've got really tired. I'm just gonna have a lie down for a minute. 1,